Now let's take a look at using for XML Auto. XML Auto is somewhere between raw and path as far as the ability to generate output. With XML Raw, we had to type a little bit to get our output the way we wanted it. XML Auto kind of gets us there quicker. Let's first start off with our query that we're going to use. We're going to select the top three from the first name and the last name columns from the person.person table. Now, if I execute that, and notice I'm going to click up here on Select Text. Now, yours may be on Grid, but if I go up here to the toolbar and choose Result to Text and execute that, you can see it's going to come back as text, and that's what it looks like. Now, XML Auto gives us some really quick formatting, but it doesn't give us the ability to do a lot of customization. Now, I would strongly encourage you to go out to Books Online and read up on XML Auto and just see what you can do and see what's possible. But for now, let's just take a look at a couple of quick features of XML Auto, and then I'm going to show you a really cool one of both Auto and Raw. But let's just add our for XML clause. And this time we'll say Auto, and let's execute that and notice what we get. Well, we got this nice little XML down here that came back, but notice this is very, very similar to what we saw using for XML Raw, except that every row name is now the name of the table, schema and table name. So notice person.person first name, and notice it's all one element, and the first name and the last name are attributes of that person.person element, okay? So I guess technically we do have XML here. It's not very well formatted, so let's think about what we can do with it. Just like with Raw, we can also add the elements keyword. So I'll put a comma in the keyword elements, and then you're going to notice that it's going to now treat the first name and the last name as separate elements in the XML output, and that is exactly what we got. So notice I will come down here and go to the end of first name, then go to the end of last name, then I will go to the end of person.person, and I'll push it on down, and you can see very clearly we're getting there. We have our elements that are our columns. First name Syed, I hope that's correct. Forgive me, Syed, if I'm wrong. Last name, I'll take a swipe here, Abbas. Now, person.person is the row. First and last name are the columns there, and then we have the rest of the data down here. Now also, let me remind you, the code for all of these examples is out there in your working files folder. Now this has added auto and elements, and so that's kind of cool, but now I want to show you something that is really neat that I can do with for XML Auto, and by the way, I can do it in for XML Raw as well. And that is I can create a schema document based on the query that's producing the output. Now, a schema document is the way that I can document what structure this XML should be in. And so if you're going to send me XML data that I want to put into my database, or if I'm going to send you XML data, if we can trade schema documents that tell us exactly how it should be formed, then we can send well-formed valid XML back and forth, and it makes parsing it and using it a whole lot easier. And so let's talk about now how we can generate an XSD schema document. Well, first off, if I just take my select statement and I do for XML Auto and elements, okay, put a comma and use the XML schema keyword, then I'll just give it a name. I'll just call it test schema. All right, and don't let the schema word confuse you. We use schema in SQL Server to describe a container of different objects, right? The person container has certain tables. The human resources schema has certain tables. And so that's a schema inside SQL Server. But when we're talking about schema here, we're talking more about the structure and the layout of the document itself. So if I execute this, what it's going to do, notice XSD schema, this is really more of an inline schema. All right. And somewhere in here at the end of this, if we get there, notice, yes, we've started right down here. This is our schema. And again, it's inline. And then we start with our first names. You can see here our last names and so forth. All right. Inline schema is not exactly too terribly exciting to read. usually you'll see schema as separate documents. Let me show you how to do that. All I have to do is put a where clause on the query that will never evaluate to true. So where 1 equals 2. Now 1 equals 2 will never be equal, right? Never be true. At least not that we're aware of. But as different things change in life, hey, who knows? So anyway, for right now, 1 does not equal 2. It never will. And so if we execute this, we will not get the results of the query, but we will get the complete schema. And so if I scroll across here, you can see that I'm getting all kinds of information out here about this particular schema. All right. And so if I start to move across here, you can see that this starts to look like schemas that you've seen in other places, right? And so this will, if you could stream this out and use it and consume it, you would see that this is creating an XSD schema. And that is incredibly powerful because now we can send someone a schema document that tells them what structure that we're looking for. So not only can you generate XML out of SQL Server, you can also generate schema documents, and that's pretty cool.